Well, how's that for a statement win? Lightning crushed the Panthers in what became another physical game between these two rivals. More on today's Locked on Lightning.
You're Locked on Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked on Lightning your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Tampa Bay Lightning podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I want to make a shout out to our everydayers. Those of you who tune into every single show, every single day, we love you. Appreciate the support you give us week in, week out. I'm Nick Morgan, and I am joined by the David Price to my Rocco Baldelli, Greg Steven. Greg, welcome in, my friend. It is so good to talk about any Lightning win, but especially a Lightning win over the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, happy Friday. Couldn't have a better Friday, like you said, after waking up to a 6-1 victory over the Florida Panthers. And Lightning 19-1-1 in their last 21 as well.
Just saying those words, 6-1 victory over the Florida Panthers. Everything feels brighter.
Yeah, it's like Christmas came again.
You know what? It also feels a little bit brighter because the Panthers got some comeuppance in this game. And that is certainly an angle that we will talk about. And as Greg mentioned, 19-1-1 run for the Tampa Bay Lightning right now, headed into the Olympic break. The big question we're going to have, can the Lightning keep up those momentum after they're gone for 2.5 weeks for Olympic hockey? A lot to get to on today's show, but let's start with the game last night. And Greg, wasn't ever really close, I will say, in this one. The Lightning controlled this game from start to finish. A lot of different players hitting the score sheet, a lot of different players hitting the goal. We had Brandon Hagel right off the bat, just 2 minutes in. We talked about him kind of having a big game or a lot to play for against the Florida Panthers because of his history. They have Zemgus Girgensons, Jake Gensel, Eric Chernak, and Pontus Holmberg, all with goals. A lot of different players had at least a point in this game for the Lightning. A little bit sad that they couldn't finish the game with a shutout for Andrei Vasilevskiy. Panthers did have a power play goal on sort of a busted play, right with about 10 minutes left in the third period to make it 5-1. And then Oliver Bjorkstrand late in the game made it 6-1. Greg, it's sad that Vasilevskiy couldn't get the shutout in this one, but a big win for the Tampa Bay Lightning, who control it from start to finish. And yes, there was a lot of mayhem in this game. We'll talk about some of the fights, some players maybe getting some comeuppance, maybe some more, I guess, attempts at tomfoolery for the Florida Panthers. A lot to talk about from that angle coming up in just a second. But let's talk about the game itself, Greg. Let's start with our plus minus from this 6-1 win over the Panthers. Give me a plus and give me a minus from this game.
Yeah, my general plus, season series 3-1 final, Lightning over the Panthers, right? For the game specifically, I want to give a plus to how diverse the score sheet is. So many guys with a point. It's just so great to see the entire team contribute against a team that we know is, one, a rival, and two, very good, a very talented team, obviously cup winners. And just to have everyone show up in this game, I think was massive.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking for a, balanced attack on this one. And as you mentioned, winning the season series, that's the big picture here. Because I think it's a little bit of a statement from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Look, a lot of people were circling Florida as they're clearly the ones to beat in this division. And it makes sense, two back-to-back Stanley Cups. No one's disputing that. But I think a lot of people were talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning and sort of their contendership in the past tense a little bit. The Hockey News had kind of a big podcast where it's like, are the Lightning Cup window closed? People are talking about the Panthers. People are talking about the Carolina Hurricanes. People were saying, looking at New Jersey and saying if that's a cap window that's open or a cup window that's open this year. Nobody was really talking about Tampa. So to come out and win the season series against the Florida Panthers, that's huge. And I think that's a statement for the Tampa Bay Lightning to be like, look, we're still in this division right now. We're still a team to beat. And you're still going to have to deal with us. And yeah, I know like the Florida response is going to be like, well, half of our team was hurt. So Tampa Bay Lightning, man. Like, look at the Lightning Man games lost this year.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there's just no real excuse for either team in this one, right? I mean, the Lightning just outright dominated and beat this team, fair and square. No excuses. I don't care if you're missing Barkov or missing Point. I think yesterday we had some great predictions. I think, one, this came down to goaltending battle. Vasilevskiy played excellently, and I think he won that duel, which is something that I had said. And then, look, you had picked the over, man. And you were right again. And I was sitting there like, oh, I think I hit the under. I think I hit the under. And then the end of the game comes, and I'm like, damn, I missed it again. But you nailed it. And you know what? I think one of us said Gage Gonsalves yesterday, I believe. I think it was you. And I had mentioned Yanni. And, not that they scored goals, but they touched the sheet. And look, we talked about the depth yesterday. Mm-hmm. They all came through. And obviously they kind of had to when half of the top of your lineup is in the penalty box. But, I mean, nonetheless, we were right on it, man.
Yeah. Yeah, our predictions are slowly getting better. I will say that, man. Slowly but surely. All right, Greg, I have 2 pluses for this one. I'm going to give a plus, number 1, to nobody getting hurt.
Yeah, of course.
That was huge. Maybe not for lack of trying for the Panthers end, but no one got hurt for the Lightning in this game. And number 2, my big plus goes to Braden Hagel. I think everybody... You said it yesterday, Greg. You were like, I'm kind of worried about playing Braden Hagel in this game just because of his past history. He just always seems to get hurt or targeted, when the Panthers play the Lightning. And so for this game, I think it was a big statement. I think it was big that he was the first person to hit the score sheet, got the scoring started with a nice little deflection off of a Victor Hedman shot. That was his only point of the night, but I think the big Braden Hagel headline that everybody's talking about, it's the Matthew Tkachuk fight, man.
Yeah,
Braden Hagel didn't just fight Matthew Tkachuk. Braden Hagel beat Matthew Tkachuk's ass.
Oh, yeah.
It was a beat down, and God, it's if you want to know what the perception of Panthers fans is, go into the hockey or NHL Reddit and just scroll the comments. And that will tell you how much people were cheering for Braden Hagel in that matchup last night. God, it was so cathartic to see him jumping up back towards center ice, hyping up the crowd. Hyping up his own bench, kind of, saying one or two things to the Florida Panthers. I think this, as much as this was a statement win about winning the season series, I think it's also a little bit of, kind of a statement win from Braden Hagel that, look, you're not going to chase me out. You're not going to change the way I play. This is who I am. And I think it was really good. And I think really symbolic that Hagel not only started this game with the scoring, but I think, really set the tone with his physical play. And, for once we talked about him being the victim of some of the physical play. Tonight he was giving it. And I think that is a big Braden Hagel statement moving forward.
No, that's a great point. And like I had to say yesterday, this is a huge matchup for him personally, I think, that more than any of the other teams in the league. And to further your point, on the broadcast, they were talking a lot about how this is a win where the Lightning, and it's kind of shown throughout this entire season, even preseason, where the Lightning are kind of saying, you know what, we've been pushed out physically in the last few seasons,
Yeah.
and that's not going to happen anymore. And
Nope.
that's what these games with the Panthers this entire year have been. It's kind of been the Lightning saying, this isn't going to continue, and we don't care how scrappy you are, we don't care how big you are. Like, we're here, we're going to put up a fight, and I love that. I think that's exactly what this team has been missing. And to see them continue to do that against the Cats, just to say, this ain't happening anymore. And
Yeah.
we'll beat you 6-1. I mean, unbelievable. You couldn't ask for a better result, honestly.
Oh, yeah. And to your point, guess who leads the NHL in fighting majors this year?
Oof.
The Tampa Bay Lightning.
Oh, team-wise, yeah.
Would you ever have predicted that?
No, I actually had no
No.
idea until they said it on the broadcast, and then I was like, oh, wow, I did not realize that.
Yeah, times have certainly changed. That's for
Mhm.
sure. All right, Greg, real quick, give me a minus from this game.
I think my minus is going to be the unfortunate missed shutout. I think this was a huge opportunity to get one. Not that it's a huge deal, but I think, you stay out of the box in that last 10 and you don't give them 5-minute penalty, or I mean 5-minute major for power play, and it doesn't go in the net. So
Yeah.
it is a bummer. I was kind of hoping to shut the Cats out, but again, not the end of the world.
Yeah, a little bit of a broken play too. Looks like
Mhm.
a turnover, kind of like a whiffed clear, sort of led to that. But yeah, Vazzy, as well as he's played this year, it seems like he should have more than just 2 shutouts to his name this year.
For sure.
But another fantastic performance for Vazzy. And
Mhm.
look, we have this Olympic break coming up. One of the topics that we're going to cover during this extended no Lightning game streak, it's Vazzy for Vezina. And I think he is a clear favorite right now across the NHL. And speaking of Olympics, Greg, my minus doesn't really have to do anything to the game itself, but my minus is Braden Point. If you missed it yesterday, he is taken off of the Canada Olympic team just a day after his teammate Anthony Cirelli was replaced.
Mhm.
He was trying so hard, man. And he apparently had no I guess John Cooper did not have any intent of putting him back in the lineup before the Olympic break, but he was letting Point take all the pregame warmups. We mentioned he skated in pregame warmups for Stadium Series,
Mhm.
just to try to get, A, to be out there with his teammates, B, just to kind of get his skates under them. He apparently had full skating sessions and practice sessions like all this week, and just couldn't make it happen. And so he was replaced on the Canadian Olympic team by Seth Jarvis. And the Julian Brisebois quote about it was heartbreaking. How devastated both those guys were. Obviously, NHL hasn't been to the Winter Olympics in 12 years at this point, which is insane.
Mhm.
Both Point and Cirelli were 2 guys that definitely would have been on the Canada roster a couple of years ago. So you hope they get another chance. It sucks for Braden Point, man, because I know how much he wanted it, and Cirelli too.
Yeah, it is. It is really, really sad. But unfortunately, it is what it is, and it's probably best they rest regardless. To be honest with you, I mean, as far as the Lightning are concerned, but yeah, for sure, sad. I feel bad for the guys. I'm glad at least Braden Point was able to take that warm up for the Stadium Series. I think he deserved that 100%.
Yeah, agree with that 100%. So if anything else, if there is good news after this, it's hopefully we get a healthy Braden Point back
Yeah.
after the Olympic break. And, he's going to be motivated to have a big second half of the year.
Hmm.
Cirelli, not sure of his timing, but, he's going to want the same thing for the
For
last,
sure.
couple of weeks for sure. More to get to from this game, including more rough stuff, more mayhem between these 2 teams. Did the Lightning or the Panthers try to cross the line again with a couple of targeted hits? We'll talk about what happened in the major brawl and whether Curtis Douglas was justified going after Nico Mikkola. A lot to get to on today's show. We'll break it down when we come back on Locked on Lightning. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make sure you have this Sunday circled, folks. because not only is it the Super Bowl, it's the last call for football on FanDuel this season. That's right, one last Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. And it's not just any big game, it's Super Bowl 60. And FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Because if you're a new customer, you can win up to $200 in bonus bets betting on the big game this weekend. That's right. Whether you're rocking with the Patriots, riding with the Seattle Seahawks, or you just want to build one last same game parlay with some of your favorite players, this is the game that everyone's been waiting for. It's where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5. And if you win, you get $200 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's $200 in bonus bets to use however you want, any game you want, any matchup you want, any parlay you want. So make it count, because after the Super Bowl, season's over, folks. We have to wait a long time to be able to bet on football again. So this is the last call for football on FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started or download the FanDuel app straight to your phone. We're back on Locked on Lightning. Nick Morgan here alongside Greg Stephen. And Greg, obviously 6-1 win over the Florida Panthers for the Tampa Bay Lightning. It feels great. Feels awesome. It's very important for the standings, very important for the playoff race, because not only is Tampa now further up the chain in the Atlantic Division, but the Florida Panthers are falling further down. Big win, important win. That's not what anybody across the NHL is talking about today. It's more rough stuff between these two teams. And you saw it early again. You know, somebody tried to line up, I believe it might have been Gustav Forsling, who tried to line Braden Hagel up for a massive hit on the first or second shift of the game. Missed, Hagel dodged it, unfortunately, but you can just kind of tell it's like, all right, it's going to be that way again. And then, honestly, interesting enough, I mean, there was some scrums and everything like that early on, but it wasn't really until the third period, to me, Greg, where this sort of devolved a little bit, to me. And it's interesting because those first two periods, it just looked like another good, fast-paced hockey game. Florida had a lot of their skill on display. Tampa had a lot of skill on display. And then it all just broke down.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think realistically, it just looked like a fun, little extra physical game until the third. But yeah, like you said, I think the talk of the town is really 147 total penalty minutes in this game. 81 for the Lightning, 66 for the Cats. Just nonsense, man, again. And you can approach this from so many ways, but I think the way I'll start is that let's look at the clean hits tally. 34 for the Lightning to the 17 of the Cats. And that just shows you right now the Bolts are a physical squad, and they are throwing the body around in a clean manner.
Yeah, it is. I think, if anything, we talked a little bit about it before the season. I think it's, if anything, the Panthers win last year in the playoffs, combined with some of the stuff that happened in the preseason, something broke, I think, for the Lightning this year, where they're like, you know what, we can't be that team anymore. We can't be the team that's like, turning to the ref and shrugging, when there's a big hit against us. We got to start taking matters into their own hands. And it's been a complete identity shift for the Lightning this year without, with pretty much the same cast as last year. I mean, there's guys like, Dominic James, who loves to throw hits. I mean, Curtis Douglas, obviously, who we'll talk about here in a second, joining to the team. I think that reshapes the identity. But I mean, really, God, everybody from top to bottom is getting a little bit more feisty. We talk about Jake Gensel, his first, NHL fight of his career happened earlier this season. He's always seems to be the first guy that just will, throw a massive cross check after the whistle, not afraid to go after guys. Darren Radish, JJ Moser have both gotten a lot more, I think, physical and not afraid to kind of mix it up after the whistle. Brandon Hagel was always that guy, but I think has turned it up to an 11 this year. You're just seeing it up and down the lineup where players, kind of the same players are this year, are more willing to sort of stick their nose in there and just play some quote unquote angry hockey.
Yeah, and it's exactly what you want to see from this team, man. I think it's one of the only things that was missing outside of like a defensive improvement from last season, which we've seen tremendously. It's just the grit and the physicality and the toughness. And God, I just love seeing it from this team. I think we see it in most games. They're playing so physically. It's not even like a fighting kind of deal. It's just strictly play the body a lot more. And they've absolutely done that. And I think in this game, not only did they do that, but they did show that we're not going to get pushed around vibe by standing up for themselves, fighting, making a few cheap shots here and there, playing the Panthers game. You want to play that game? We'll play it right back at you. And
I don't know if the Lightning are throwing cheap shots per se.
I will argue that Curtis Douglas, was throwing some hands in a one-sided bout. But outside of that, I'm not going to say I didn't like it or I don't support it.
It's not a cheap shot if the player deserved it.
If he deserved
that quote right there is going to get me in trouble with a lot of people, I'm sure. Okay. But no, like I am 100% with you. I think the Lightning are more of a we're taking matters into our own hands team this year, to your point. And I think a lot of it was, I think the Lightning weren't happy with some of the officiating decisions in the playoff series last year. And I'm not saying I agree or disagree with John Cooper coming out. It seems like they got away with more than we did. That was sort of a sentiment after the game. And then I think the AJ Greer punch on Brandon Hagel, I think that sort of you saw what happened the next game. I think that was John Cooper saying, it's like, you know what? We're sticking up for ourselves. We're not going to be the team that gets pushed around. Greg, I want to talk about, sort of the big fights in this game. Like obviously a lot of scrums, but let's talk about how the big one in the third period started. You've probably seen this clip on social media, the ref having to come out with what looks like a small coffee shop menu to announce all the penalties, just because pretty much everybody and their mom was penalized on this play. But
it took them so long to sort that out as well.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like it was massive break and play, but it started with, I'm not necessarily going to call it a cheap shot. I mean, it was a cheap play, but it was definitely the Panthers trying to get under the Lightning's skin. You have Nikita Kucherov set up in the circle. You have Niko Mikkola coming out, elbows, Nikita Kucherov to the side, like kind of just shoulder hit away from the play. People don't like it. Kucherov gets up, starts yelling back. You have Matthew Tkachuk. This is the play that everybody has circled. Matthew Tkachuk gets off the bench, skates around, takes a big lap in his own zone. You can't argue it was accidental. Just skates right into a stopped Kucherov from behind, knocks him down, shrugging like what's going on. And then the way everybody responded, that's where you go. First off, Matthew Tkachuk did not want to fight Darren Radish for whatever reason, but did drop the gloves with Brandon Hagel, and Brandon Hagel let loose on him. Yes, absolutely let loose on him. And there was a lot of pumped-up frustration. It's very interesting that Tkachuk did not have any interest in dropping the gloves with anybody else but Brandon Hagel. I think that was very intentional, and I think that is a little bit of a callback to last year in the Four Nations when those two fought right off the opening whistle. And I think it's a statement that Florida tried to play that game, and Tkachuk got crushed.
Yeah. I mean, look, dude. Let's just start with the cheap shots on Cooch, right? Like, I cannot stand Niko Mikkola, like, just in general. It's just terrible to watch. But I will say I feel like Cooch took a pretty easy fall there. Not that I'm going to criticize him for it, because I think most players will in that situation where it's like an easy bait penalty, right? I mean, obviously, Mikkola shouldn't be touching him there at all. But, Cooch milked that a bit. And I think that's what Tkachuk took personally. but then to, you know, make this crazy loop route through your own blue line to hit him from behind unexpectedly while he's stationary is just like, what is this, beer league? Like, are
Yeah.
you 10 years old? Like, to me, it's like, if you're looking to get revenge, find him and hit him clean. But like, that's how you're gonna do that. I feel like you're painting yourself in like a worse light than you would if you just went for a good hit, you know? And I just, if I'm Tkachuk, I'm embarrassed, man. That's such an embarrassing thing to do. You're an NHLer and a superstar nonetheless. And that's what you want your image to be. I'm so shocked that you're cool with that. And it is what it is. Because you know what? Hagel gave it to you. And he let you have it. Like you said, I think that was not a close fight. Usually those two brawl hard and it's, you know, a 50-50, but that was lopsided in my eyes.
Yeah. You had a couple other instances, obviously, in that same fight, JJ Moser and Gustav Forsling, where Gustav Forsling was very, very pissed. And, you know, a lot of people did not like the punches on the ground. That's kind of a no-no. Was seemed to be, you know, multiple refs were there on top of Forsling, and Forsling was not letting go, was trying to push, you know, Moser into the ice a little bit, whatever. You also had an instance later. We talk about, you know, the Nico Mikkola starting it. Curtis Douglas grabs Mikkola at center ice, tries to get him to go. Mikkola won't because he never does, unless it's Jake Gensel. And, you know, finally just says, okay, if you're not going to drop the gloves, this game is over. I'm a perennial healthy scratch. I'm just going to lay some shots on you. And yeah, maybe a little bit cheap. Maybe a little bit one of those plays where you circle, and if Florida did it, you'd say, well, they're a dirty team.
Yep.
But like
I'm
I said,
so
Greg,
here for it, dude.
Like I said, Greg, go scroll like the NHL Reddit, go scroll Twitter if you don't think this wasn't deserved.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Go see what fans across the league are saying about Curtis Douglas.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't a, well, this is bad for the game and Curtis Douglas needs to, you know, be suspended for this. It is a, can you please post more of these? Can you please post a more high def version of this fight? So,
yeah, I mean, look, I can't stand the Mikkola, like I said. So I'm so here for the Curtis Douglas smackdown. Not that he got a huge opportunity, but yes, if you're going to go to the box or get booted from the game, you know what? Throw a few in there. I'm cool with it.
Yeah. All right. Obviously, good physical game, good win for the Lightning. Feels good. As we mentioned earlier, the Lightning are now on an epic run, 19-1-1. They can't lose in their last 21 games, but now they head in the Olympic break. They're going to be sitting for a while. Can they continue this momentum after the break? That's a talk we'll have when we come back on Locked on Lightning. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Hey, for any of you who have ever used online dating apps, have you ever swiped right on somebody whose prompts look good, who had all the right pictures, who seemed to be fun, and then you went on a date with them and God, their profile did not match who they were in person, not a match at all? In that case, you could probably just not schedule a second date. But when you hire somebody for your job whose resume doesn't match their actual real-world experience, that can set your business back a little bit. That's why you need to trust Indeed sponsored jobs. If you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites when Indeed sponsored jobs can put your post right at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. It not only reaches the right candidates faster, but Indeed actually takes your job post and puts it out to candidates whose resume matches the experience you're looking for. And that can make a real difference. In fact, according to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. So you can spend more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves, and Indeed.com/locked on. Again, just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support Locked on Lightning by saying you heard about it on our show. Terms and conditions apply. If you're hiring, do it the right way. with Indeed. Back on Locked on Lightning, Nick Morgan here alongside Greg Stephen. And Greg, let's talk about the Lightning after this game. In December 18th, they lost to the LA Kings. It was their third straight loss. It was their eighth loss in, I believe, 12 games.
Mm-hmm.
Things were looking a little bit slippy-slidey for the Tampa Bay Lightning at the beginning of December. But since then, 19-1-1, and some pretty big wins in this gap too. They're outscoring their team. We talk about Nikita Kucherov, who is on an ungodly scoring pace. Since 2000, the most points scored in a 25 game stretch in since the year 2000. A lot going for the Lightning right now.
Yeah.
So Greg, my question is, we're about to come up on the Olympic break. No more games until late February. Can they keep this up even after sitting for, 2.5 weeks?
Yeah, it's a big question. I want to say I hope so, but
yeah, you and me both.
But I think there's a lot to this question. I think the first is that they have a lot of guys who were selected for the Olympics. And let's just say, I don't know how often they're going to practice over this break. I'm assuming not a ton, especially initially, right? Because, these guys are going to watch this stuff if they're not there, or they're going to go on vacation, rightfully so.
And they do have a block where they cannot practice.
Right. And then the other part of it is, so many guys returning from injury, don't know when they'll all be healthy, and I think we've seen how difficult it has been for Hedman to kind of reacclimate to the squad and fit in with this new chemistry. And not that I think Braden Point would have the same difficulty, but when a guy comes back, it kind of just disrupts the chemistry. And I think that's going to be a little bit tricky for this team because they have a lot of guys returning after this break, and they need to figure out who's going to be where moving forward. I think that plays a huge role in this. I also think just not playing as a team for 2.5 weeks, obviously, is huge. But the only positive to that is every other team is in the same boat, right? So it's not like you're coming back to a full force NHL team that has been playing for 2.5 weeks. They all have not played, so that's helpful. And then I think the last thing is you're just hot right now, and when you're hot, you're hot, and 2.5 weeks can really stagnate that momentum. And it's sad because Radish has been cooking. Kucherov has been cooking. Vasilevskiy, absolutely on fire. And to not see pucks for 2.5 weeks if you're Vasi, I think that's, a bit of a negative thing. But
absolutely.
If there's a team in this league that can do this, this is one of them, right? I think they'll come back. I don't think they'll be bad at all.
No.
But I don't know that they're going to go 19-1-1 again.
I'm not putting it past them. I think for me, it's just kind of style play right now.
Yeah.
I think there are going to be, some games that maybe look a little bit rusty off the top. And as you mentioned, it's not just the rest, but you're probably going to get Braden Point back after, and, you're going to have to shuffle the line again. Anthony Cirelli is probably going to be in that same boat too. And it's also not out of the question that Lillberg comes back. And that's another big, X factor. What does the defense look like with a healthy Lillberg? Is he coming back to his old spot, or is this a scene of, Declan Carlisle passed you, man? Like, we don't know what to tell you. And Dastu also coming back from injury probably after the winter break too. So I think there might be a couple of instances where it kind of looks like maybe the beginning of the Bruins game, maybe the beginning of the Sabres game, where it just looks like maybe for the first little bit they're off a little bit. But I think that as they heat up and find some of that chemistry, they're going to go. And to your point, Greg, look, the Lightning are just a good hockey team. with a lot going for them. Their defense is solid right now. Their goaltending is solid right now. And they're getting clutch scoring, particularly from Nikita Kucherov, who is scoring at a pace, as we mentioned, we haven't seen since like the insane Jaromir Jagr years of the 1990s. That is something to, consider too. Like the Lightning might just be a team to beat this year. Like they might just be a wagon. And so I'm not seeing anything that makes me go like, oh, this is just, a hot streak, some momentum. No, the Lightning are here to stay. And I do think maybe there might be some rust after the Olympic break, but I don't anticipate at all the Bolts kind of having any sort of stumble and come flying back to earth. I think this is just who they are.
I agree. I completely agree with you. I'm, it kind of ties in with how we felt about Radish. Like, when does this end? But it doesn't end. He's just Radish now, man. That's just what this is. And that's exactly how I feel about this team right now. That's exactly what this team is. This team is powerful. This is a cup contending team. They play a new edge to their game. They're talented and they're complete. And it also ties in with the fact that we said, I don't even know if they need to make a move. That's how good they are.
Yeah. If they make a move, it is just because they want to, like they bolster. They're not in any sort of need to fix their lineup by any means like that. So obviously here's what's kind of how the dust is settling right now. So Tampa Bay Lightning are now done with hockey until Wednesday, February 25th. So we got almost 3 whole weeks of no Lightning hockey. For the team, there is sort of a mandatory can't do anything period, but then I think there can be like some light skating and stuff that the guys aren't a part of the Olympics can take part in. Obviously, a lot of Lightning players are going to be at the games this year, so we'll have to watch for their game and everything like that. It's the reset button, folks. This is kind of the big thing on the calendar this year, and it's going to be interesting to see how different teams across the league play it. For us here on Locked on Lightning, we are not taking a 3-week break. We will still have new content for you every single day. We'll, of course, cover all of the Lightning in the Olympics. We'll cover some Olympic hockey, too, because, women's game, men's game, my favorite event of the Olympics by far. So we'll be sure to have a lot of content for you there. Also, some more deep dives into some of our Lightning players, first round report cards or first half report cards, our players up front for awards, second half storylines, everything like that. A lot more coming at you on Locked on Lightning during this break. So don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere. We love to have you along for the ride. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked on Lightning. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back with an all-new episode Monday. We'll see you then.